Thank you for joining Catapult Systems for today's webinar, Office 365 and EMS Better Together, presented by Joe Custer, Catapult Systems Senior Lead Consultant. We're really lucky to have Joe on the call today. He is one of the leading minds in this very rapidly developing field of mobility, enterprise mobility. So during the webinar, please tweet. You can continue the conversations. If you use @Catapult Systems and the hashtag O365, I can get you entered and a chance to win a Plantronics speakerphone, and we'll announce the winner at the end of this presentation. You can submit questions at any time using the chat/questions panel. We will answer all your questions at the end of the presentation as time permits. Today's presentation is being recorded, and you will receive a link to the recording and the presentation slides in an email tomorrow. Feel free to share this link with your colleagues. I'll now turn it over to Joe to get started.
Thank you, David, and I want to again welcome all of the people who have joined us on this exciting adventure with Office 365 and EMS. I know it seems a bit cliche, but the world of IT has always been changing at a rapid pace, and that fact has never been more true than today. Not only do we have the average employee with a cell phone in their pocket that has more processing power than a laptop from 5 years ago, but businesses have actually adapted to rely on that fact. We don't expect people just to be in contact. We expect them to be productive anytime, anywhere, wherever it is that they're working. So that means that IT has kind of had to grow into this new role of tagging along with them. So as our employees are going out into the field, traveling to new countries, traveling across the seas, up in the airplanes, we're right alongside with them. And the services we provide have to be able to meet those needs. So as we get started, let's take a look at the business needs that are out there. Office 365 has been addressing this continuous and changing need. Many companies have used it as a way of addressing this need for the more mobile workforce. And to help assist with that, we've been bringing in Microsoft Enterprise Mobility Suite. So whenever we're talking about Office 365, first and foremost, what are we talking about? That, of course, includes Exchange Online. Everybody needs email. SharePoint Online. Let's do your documents, workflows, do collaborative pieces there. OneDrive, your files are important. Link, staying connected, Project, Yammer, bringing in that social piece as well. These are the things that we've adapted to require to move forward in enterprise. So along with that, I want to touch on a few statistics. Right now, 81% of Americans use their personal mobile devices for work. We're carrying between 2 and 3 devices, whether that's a laptop and a cell phone, laptop, cell phone, tablet, e-reader, pager. We're carrying more and more devices than ever. Out of that, as a scary number, 35% of employees store their work email passwords on their devices. 37% have no lock screen in place, no passwords, no PIN. And 80% of all that BYOD activity, bring your own device, is going unmanned. So that's kind of a reality check of the world we live in today. It's quite a bit different from a mere 5 years ago. So whenever we're talking about what type of mobile devices, whenever we look at the mobile device share, you can kind of get a feel that Microsoft has been the leader in workstations, laptops, and so forth. But for mobility, we have a changing environment. So how do we adapt to that changing environment where Apple and Android devices are out there in large numbers and need to be supported? We need to protect our company data, but we also need to better enable those users to be able to be productive. Right now, we're kind of in that flux state. Most companies have been moving from this on-premise only to let's start adapting to the cloud. And, as we're looking at this, we've been moving our data centers from, physical hardware. We've already been revolutionizing that. We've been virtualizing stuff. We're using Hyper-V, VMware, and all the other virtualization pieces to increase our reliability, reduce costs, and be able to provide better services. So as we've kind of moved away from this desktop EA piece where your domain-based identity and single sign-on only works on premises or only if you have a VPN established. Office 365 has provided quite a bit more capability. So you can say that mobile device that has internet only, we can bring in the capabilities of still being able to access and do the single sign-on portion. We can bring in multi-factor authentication to better secure that content, and we can bring in rights management. Again, we have a lot of capabilities as part of Office 365. And EMS takes it yet another step. There we bring in the capabilities that are enterprise necessary. Group management security, being able to do self-enrollment in certain security groups and being able to do password resets off the web. We can't rely on users dropping everything and traveling back to the nearest LAN connection just to be able to change their password if something goes wrong. That's the reality of today. We have a lot of users who are not on premises. We can establish that connection between Active Directory and Azure to extend some of the tools that you're used to having in Office 365. So bringing MFA, bringing rights management, let's bridge the gap between Office 365 capabilities and bring it into that hybrid aspect where if you still have that hybrid or on-premises resources, great. Let's tie in and let's be able to integrate those capabilities. Let's protect your content. Let's be able to use classifications to be able to say, that's okay for public consumption. This cannot be forwarded outside of the environment. So let's go ahead and dive into some of the pieces of EMS. Enterprise Mobility Suite is made up of 3 core pieces. And I know it says Windows Intune. I just got the email a couple minutes ago that we're going to be changing it to Microsoft Intune. And I think that's actually relevant because as we're moving forward, it's not just managing Windows. It's managing Apple, iOS, managing Google, Android, managing the variety of workstations, as well as just your content as it moves around. Those are important pieces. So mobile device management of let's enforce pins, do a selective wipe so that whenever an employee joins an organization, they can be able to use their content, but whenever they leave that particular role, we can selectively remove just the work content rather than forcing a reset of their entire device. Let's look at the hybrid identity management that is provided through Azure AD Premium. So Azure AD Premium provides a link between your on-site Active Directory and your Azure tenant and then presents a new set of capabilities. So we'll dive into that in just a minute. Now, your identity protection, Azure Rights Management, being able to clearly classify. We've always had the capability of doing on-premises file share permissions, but what happens whenever you need to share something with a federated partner? Or what happens whenever you want to be able to share a file to a mobile device and you have no idea what's happening from that point forward? You want to be able to restrict it. You want to be able to protect what happens. You want to be able to audit who's accessing that data. So let's bring in those capabilities and bring them into your on-premises and Office 365 suite. So let's take a look at Intune and dive in a little bit. What Intune provides is that central tool that allows you to secures PCs as well as mobile devices. So if you have those, very mobile workstations, the engineers out in the field, the sales team, they're never on the LAN. They very rarely ever fire up the VPN. How do you make sure that they're getting the updates that you want to make sure that they have? So we can say for those Windows workstations, let's control what updates they get. Let's not just open it up to automatic. We can still control that. Let's be able to present the software and application management capabilities. Let's be able to push down the newest versions or enforce certain rules. So we can say, you know what, this is a high security workstation. We need to turn off cameras. Or we need to be able to say, hey, these iPads, these are really kiosks. Let's turn off the App Store. Let's lock it down a little bit. So it's an easier, more safe, and reliable experience for our customers. So Intune today, as standalone Intune has no infrastructure requirements. You can be up and running in under an hour. Basically, it's sign in, get your Intune tenant, and begin presenting users and devices to it for management. And we'll kind of show a little bit of what that looks like. I do want to point out that the functionality does vary by OS and version. Since Intune relies on, for instance, if you want to encrypt a device, it's going to use the native encryption of that device. So if it's Apple iOS, if we're talking 7 and newer, it's FIPS compliant. Same thing with Android going back to, I think, 2.1, but don't quote me on that. But since we're able to utilize those native security tools, we're able to dive in and add a lot more capability. As far as soft Intune capabilities, the leading piece that everybody asks me is, I have this important application. It's our company ERP software. It's our expense account. It's our accounting software. It's our mileage utility. Or maybe it's just even the events feed. We want to be able to provide this and make sure that our employees have it on their devices. Or let's go ahead and use Intune as an ability of pushing out Office 365. Let's push out OneDrive. Let's push Link so that the users get a much more streamlined experience. They download one application, set up their credentials, and then we can help manage the rest of the user experience from there. So as far as configuration rules, this really is a deep dive. It's a bit like what you would do with group policy today with Active Directory on premises. It brings those type of capabilities into a mobile-centric focus. Software updates, again, that's going to rely on, let's control which updates. It wasn't but a couple months ago that we actually had some patches that went out into the wild that got retracted. Let's prevent those type of patches from going out into our environment. Let's utilize the built-in malware protection and report and audit on it. Let's provide remote control and remote assistance capabilities where it's available. As well as, and this is really quite critical, just knowing what's out there. Let's inventory and really get a deep dive into what hardware is in our environment so we can better make important business decisions based on what devices are out there. Well, what do we need to focus on with our users to be able to best serve their needs? As well as, let's dive into what software they're using today, as well, and also checking for liability compliance. All right. So platform support within Android, iOS, Mac OS X, Symbian, Windows Phone, RT, Windows 8, and 8.1, there's what we call enhanced support. So this ties into the operating system itself. And it is able to use either the security rules that are there or the capabilities, or else it provides sufficient additional functionality where we can. It's going to vary a little bit by the exact version. Take, for instance, 4.0 Android has a lot more capabilities than 2.1. But out of that, that's really up to the vendors on the hardware. As they're continuing to evolve their product, we can continue to leverage those capabilities. So as far as on the lightweight EAS side, this is let's bring in inventory. Let's really discover what's out there. Let's be able to do certain security settings. That's really where we get into BlackBerry Mobile, Windows Embedded. But as you can see, that list is very tilted towards the enhanced support, and it's getting better every day. I would be amiss if I didn't point it out, but as IT, one of our histories has always been we manage the devices. But that doesn't always fit today's world. Do we care that we're managing a laptop with the following serial number, or do we care that we're providing the software that an employee needs? So if we, for instance, start targeting our applications for expense reporting to Bob in accounting, we want him to have access to that regardless of which device he's on. So as he gets a new device, he can self-enroll that particular device, if we allow this, then he can actually manage his own devices as he adds and removes them. So if he gets a brand new iPhone this week, no ticket is actually generated. Now, we still have device-centric capabilities, and those devices capabilities are fairly fully fledged. But I will say that it's always worth considering shifting to user-targeted deployments and policies. So one of the capabilities that Intune does bring to enterprise right now, if you have already invested in System Center 2012 R2 Configuration Manager, you can continue to leverage that capability. So Configuration Manager provides a very robust enterprise-wide on-premises tool for managing your workstations, policy, control, requirements, auditing, and with very rich reporting. And out of that, we can actually connect Intune to it. So Configuration Manager does have internet-based capabilities today, but I don't see that a lot of companies are using it because of the security and difficulty of implementing this. So what you can leverage is Intune to be able to extend your existing capabilities and bring those new mobile devices into your management fold for that single pane. You can open Configuration Manager and manage Bob's laptop just the same as you can manage Bob's iPhone. And you can provide unified reporting based on if you want to be able to audit and say, give me all of Bob's devices. You don't just get part of the picture, you get all of it. So how do they connect? Once they're integrated, and again, this is optional, Intune will continue to support Windows 8, iPhone, Android, iOS. It has that full capability. But if you want that single pane experience, this also brings in enhanced capabilities for managing your Macs and managing your Windows PCs. And as far as, if you're trying to compare management of a PC, what does Intune get you versus Configuration Manager? Really, that's going to focus on things like operating system distribution. So if you're planning on upgrading a workstation from Windows 7 to Windows 8, that's more of a Configuration Manager task. If you want to be able to patch them, or if you want to be able to push software to them, either one of them are capable of providing that service. But I want to be able to dive in and show what the Intune user experience is for a typical user. So here's Intune, and I'll go ahead and show, yes, this isn't a legit iPad. I'm using an AirPlay emulator. So out of this, user will be able to download the Intune, the Microsoft corporate portal, be able to log in, and immediately have access to a large number of definable applications. You can pick anything from the iTunes store that's out there today and be able to present it to a user. You can also sideload custom applications that you're developing internally. So you can rely on being able to have your own internal tools if you need them and push them out to manage devices across your entire enterprise. Here you'll be able to see it does list my devices. I can manage them. I can say, oh, this desktop, I want to be able to remove it, rename it. And I'm just logged in as a user at this point. I have my company contact information for support. You can select from this and it immediately opens the App Store so you can be able to grab those new content from. There we go, and open. All right. Additionally, I've also got a Hyper-V virtual machine for Android. And again, pretty much the same user experience. This is emulating a tablet. So here I have an Android application. We've got the corporate portal installed, along with I've used it to push out Office 365, some custom side-loaded things, as well as an application that I've written. So from here we can very easily click install, and that's going to present that and distribute that from our Azure tenant that comes along with the Intune piece. So whenever you sign up for Intune, that tenant will include a certain amount of space, if you're side-loading custom applications, this is going to allow you to write your own and present those to your devices. So here we go. And downloading and successful. And it's going to ask me for permission to install it. And there we go. So my little calculator app. So it's really quite reliable. It's really quite fast, and it's very easy to use. So it's been a phenomenal asset for IT to be able to better enable a unified experience across the devices. So I'm going to pull open the Intune tenant, make sure that I'm still logged in. So here we've got the Intune tenant. Again, this only took a few minutes to set up. But we can tie in existing user groups. We can synchronize it from Office 365. We can synchronize it from on-premises, and we can synchronize it from your Azure tenant. So we've got a lot of connectivity options as far as presenting the users and devices out of that. We can tie it into Configuration Manager. So if you have implemented that integration piece, then your devices will begin presenting here. You can even tie it into your 365 tenant to be able to start aggregating the various mobile devices that are discovered as part of your Exchange active sync that you have today. Here you'll see I've got some updates. I can approve them. This will go into my Microsoft Windows updates. I can just immediately hit approve and decline. It behaves a little bit like the existing Windows Server update service today. We can provide malware protection capabilities as well as dive in and see audit logs of any existing malware infections that are out there. We've got various alerts. You can configure those to be able to give you alert rules as new updates come out, new malware. You can basically set the rules to be able to monitor your tenant and be able to provide additional alerts to your administrative staff so they can better respond to that. So if somebody has a Windows Workstation or Mac OS X that is triggering their endpoint protection client, this will tie into that and present that into the central Intune console. So it'll also do your software inventory. You can see, check for any red flags. You can say, oh, I want to make sure that there's no games installed on this particular workstation. And you can react accordingly. You can set up an uninstallation process remotely. Here you can actually add new software. So underneath Manage Software, we have the capability of very quickly adding. Here I've got some applications that are coming from the iOS store. And I also have a side-loaded application that I wrote myself. You just basically go through the Add Software Wizard, which only takes about a minute. And then you'll create a deployment that lets you target which users or which devices you want to be able to push that out to. So you can say, if we do this to a device, let's go ahead and take, for instance, LogMeIn Hamachi. You'll see different capabilities depending on what type of operating system you're targeting. So if you choose to use device-centric targeting on a Windows system, you can say a required installation and configure a deadline, much like you would in Configuration Manager today. As far as licenses, it does have the capability of leveraging your existing Microsoft agreements. But really what most people are most interested in for Intune is policies. So if we want to create a mobile device security policy, I want to be able to create a new custom one. Here I can just call it test or kiosk lockdown. So if I have a set of devices that I want to lock down for a particular type of behavior, I can come in here much like you can with Active Sync today through Exchange and set the basic security restrictions that you would prefer. But this goes much further. You can say, this particular device I want to be able to disable the fingerprint unlock because it's a company device that we want to be able to manage differently. We want to be able to configure the inactivity before locking the screen. We want to be able to force encryption of storage cards. We want to be able to do malware alerting, enable smart screen. And again, these will vary. It will tell you which operating systems these apply to. So take, for instance, automatic updates is a Windows thing. But screen capture also applies to Windows Phone and iOS 6. So it will actually prevent a screen capture from happening on that device. You can come down here and you can also say disable iCloud, disable Microsoft synchronization for these particular devices. So there's a ton of capabilities in here, from pop-up blockers to blocking the App Store. Disable Game Center. These are very practical pieces that companies want to be able to manage today, whether that's sell cards, hardware, and so forth. And they only take a few moments to be able to set up these capabilities and then deploy them out to your managed devices. You also have nice update reports. I want to be able to find all devices that are missing reports. I want to be able to find all machines with a specific piece of software installed or are using current licensing. And again, it supports a little bit of everything. So here I am on a Windows workstation, and I can still dive in and very easily install a new application. So here it's going to pop up, gives me the nice little installing. We'll see another pop-up momentarily, and that will present that to the managed workstation. If I did a required one, it would have done that without my intervention. So, and again, I'd love to take questions on this one at the end. So if you have questions, please throw them into the chat log, and we'll move from there. So Azure Active Directory Premium, it brings in a lot of capabilities, and it's kind of hard to sum up in one specific piece. A lot of people implement it for the multi-factor authentication, and if you're not familiar with that, we'll touch on that in a moment. Additionally, the self-service password reset, that is a massive asset. Whenever I've worked with various enterprises, we found that the amount of tickets around passwords reset have been phenomenally reduced whenever implementing tools like this. It does bring in the forefront identity manager licensing, so you can use that on premises if you do buy Active Directory Premium. And it does provide the simplified federation, so it gives you that Azure federation capabilities where you can have your Office 365 tenant and be able to have your shared partners and extend it into different types of systems within their environment. As well as another big one is the software as a service integration piece. Let's give you single sign-on. Let's provide a secure password that the user doesn't need to see. They log in with their normal one, and then let's supplement that with other types of credentials as they log into other services. So what is multi-factor authentication and why should you care? Here's one reason why you should care. Post-it notes. Losing people's passwords since 1978. Your users have horrible password practices, and part of it's our fault. We asked them to come up with a nice secure password that's unique and has nice scrambles and has a unique one for every application, and we're going to reset those passwords every so often. As a way of countering that, they do things like writing it down, and then they lose them. But the flip side of that being is they're also reusing our secure passwords they're using for enterprises elsewhere, whether that was being used for companies like LinkedIn. LinkedIn was, hacked a few years back, and they were able to get everybody's passwords. And almost immediately I started seeing attacks that were matching people's company credentials, where people were trying to log in with those credentials across enterprises. So how do we stop that? Multi-factor authentication goes an extra step past the username and password. So that username and password would be what you know, and then what you have would equal your access. So what you have is a soft token on an application in your Android, your Windows Phone, your iOS, or just an actual phone call to your desk. It's configurable to do text messages or rely on these other applications. By asking for that extra piece, that will actually prevent most stolen and hacked password abuse. Additionally, Azure Multi-Factor Authentication gives you the capability of knowing immediately whenever somebody's trying to hack into a multi-factor authentication-enabled application or website or otherwise service. You do have a lot of capabilities. Additionally, IP whitelisting is one of the newer additions. I love it because you can say, on-premises, don't ask for this extra piece. As soon as they're off-site, ask for that extra piece before they trigger their VPN or access sensitive company data. So what's the user experience look like? Typically, you're going to, Office 365 today. Right now, it's you're logging in. It's going to pop up. It's going to send you a text message, or it's going to require you to log into that application, and then get that PIN number. You'll enter in that PIN number and then proceed to the rest of your login. Well, what multi-factor authentication from Azure presents is, let's bring that same capability on premises. Not only does it beef up what you can do in the cloud, it allows you to bring that type of capability to an on-premises SharePoint server or anything that uses LDAP, Radius, Windows Authentication. Any of your IIS apps are great to be able to integrate with this. You kick off the wizard, feed it the URL, and it embeds inside of that to be able to present the users with their standard login, and it hits that next step, checks your IP address, checks all of those pre-flight pieces, and if you need it, it will go beyond that and prompt for that additional piece of information. It does provide real-time monitoring, threat reporting, and additionally, if it's not built into or not compatible with your application today, we also have the SDK available for download as well. So I know we're running a little bit close on time, so I'm going to go ahead and skip this next piece because it takes a little bit of time to set up. But basically, as we go back through it, it is rock solid as far as this user experience. What this does is it extends it from Office 365 to your Windows Azure logins, your software as a service logins, be able to bring it on premises as well. But it has provided a phenomenal capability. And in addition, the Azure multi-factor authentication brings in extra capabilities like customizing the message that's presented to your employees as well. All right, so data rights management. This is one has been requested over and over from my side. Rights management begins with the capabilities of Office 365. So you could already define Office 365 file and resource and content classifications. So you could come in here and say, this is company confidential. So it can be forwarded around inside the company, but let's restrict that from going outside of the company. Granular settings to protect content. You can define your typical stuff that you would in NTFS shares, users and groups. Let's bring in federated partners. Let's bring in time restrictions. So if you have that sales document that is, hey, this is a limited time contract, this is a limited time offer, or even just common sense pieces. Hey, this is the company door code. It changes every January. Let's have that expire in January so that users don't accidentally stumble into the wrong document thinking, oh, well, hey, this code's broken. It's got a lot of capabilities, and I love being able to do time restrictions, device restrictions, users, and so forth, because you can take a sensitive document and send it via email and still be able to control where it goes, how it's opened, who gets it, and how long it's out there. Additionally, as part of this, it will enforce the opening and compatible apps that respect rights management. So if you want to be able to limit copying and pasting out of a document, you can do so with a couple clicks. So real quick, this is kind of an example of what the user interface would look like inside Office 365, but we're going to show a quick demo of this. And we'll jump in. to virtual machine. So here I've got a virtual machine that has Outlook on it, and I've got a document here that I've already sent to my users. And here's an example of it coming in. Server administrator passwords, read only. I've also got a patent photo. So let's start off with the patent photo first. If I want to be able to forward something so that the rest of my company can view it, great. But I want to be able to prevent this from going out of the environment. And to do this, all we have to do is whenever we're creating a new email, once you've got the template set up, which again do not take very long. All right, let me make sure everything's set. Looks good. All right. So let's create a new email. If I hit set permissions, I have the capability of selecting from any of my either pre-made or custom templates that I've created. I can select from the pricing sheets, which gives everybody forwarding capabilities, but intentionally time bombs it so that after 30 days, that content expires. That's it. From the user perspective, we've made it so simple that they'll actually use it. And that's the whole part is let's present security capabilities in a way that are so simple to implement. And the users actually understand it. Whenever they see this, they get it. They see this lovely little thing that says, we can read it, but we can't forward, print, or copy content. So if I try and copy this content out of this email, it's going to fail. But I've got an even better example of what that looks like. So let's go ahead and take, for instance, really sensitive information. So if I've got a set of one-time use passwords for servers, and I want to be able to restrict this, right now you can see I've disabled reply, forward. If I go to save, I can't save it as. I can't take it out of Exchange. Well, what if I wanted to just do a screenshot? Well, I've got a screenshot app right here, screenshots. So if I do that, it immediately blacks out the screen. So if I hit print screen and come over here to Word and paste it, here's what we get. It uses the digital rights management capabilities built into Office today to be able to black out and prevent that content from going anywhere that you don't want it to go. So again, couple clicks and we've protected our document from having corporate leaks. So this RMS is really powerful, and I think it gets a little less press than it should with how well it works. To give you an idea of what EMS takes to deploy, I've just put in a quick screenshot. This is something that Catapult uses internally. It's part of our Mobility Jumpstart program. If you want to do the simple get-to-know mobility, let's do the Intune, Azure, Active Directory, RMS, education. We're only talking a day. A couple days, and all of a sudden we've got identifying your business policies and implementing it. Within the first week, we've deployed an entire mobility pilot out there with your customized pieces. So it doesn't take very much to get started, and the investment is really quite small given the capabilities that this buys you. So I do want to touch on one related technology, and I think it kind of fills some of the gaps that some people might have with the mobile device management, which is how do I really, really lock down content? Like I don't even want an encrypted file to touch that iPad, but I still want my users to still be productive. Azure Remote App Preview provides a full VDI capability of being able to push out your remote applications. Let's present IE11 or Office 2013 full version or my custom ERP application. Let's present those on an iPad through a streaming session in an easy-to-use manner. And the user experience on it is phenomenal. I've done presentations on it before, but it is wonderful. And it's out there right now. You can do Remote App on premises today. Azure Remote App takes it 5 steps further by automating most of the configuration and setup. It really is wonderful. Go out there, and if you've got an Azure tenant today, go out there and turn on that preview and try it out. It is quite capable of being able to move your mobility capabilities forward with minimal investment. So a couple EMS frequently asked questions. First off, can I use my existing Azure commitment? Technically, the licenses are handled differently, so the answer is no. If I own an E3 license today, what does RMS get me? That's where it brings in that on-premises connector. Let's lock down OneDrive the same as we lock down our file shares, the same as we lock down other things. And on top of this, I think I've got a few minutes here to show one piece that I want to show off real quick. So here I've got some files. Azure Rights Management gives me the capability of bringing that same protect in place. These are the same capabilities, my same templates. So if I want to be able to select a couple of these documents and be able to share them protected, so I can say, well, let's send this out to another user. I can immediately define what permissions I want them to have, and it works the same way. So if I say view only, they cannot save it. They cannot screenshot it. Reviewer, let's let them edit. Let's let them print. Let's let them have full content. And we can easily time bomb it with a couple clicks. So I can say, hey, this expires next week, as well as email me whenever somebody tries to open this document. The flip of that one being that we can just do a protect in place and say, hey, this is executive only. Let's lock it. That actually changes the file format to an encrypted state in a protected document. Now, what if it's not a protected type of, it's not Office? I can protect in place a good number of different types of files. And it'll actually generate a P file, which is essentially an encrypted file that RMS opens. You authenticate, and then once that's authenticated, it decrypts it and then opens it in whatever application. So within that, you want to be careful as far as your expectations, because once they decrypt it and open it in the native app, you want to know where that's going. So lock it appropriately for your business needs. All right. So lastly, if I own an E3 license, what does MFA get me? So here we're talking the fraud alerts, customized greetings, customized number, the SDK to write your own applications, as well as the on-premises MFA server. And the on-premises MFA server gives you the capability of taking even a hosted version of SharePoint. So if we're not talking SharePoint online, if you have a Rackspace SharePoint site, we can lock down an individual site with different permissions than the rest of everything else. So it's got a ton of capabilities.
Yeah. Well, before we start the question and answer, I want to give everybody a chance to request a call from a Catapult executive, account executive, to discuss any mobility or cloud initiatives you may be planning. If you would like to have a call from an account executive to discuss these initiatives, just select the topics that interest you, and we'll give you a call once the webinar is over. But I'll leave this up, and we can kind of start some of the Q&A right now. We did have a question about forcing the templates, force email templates to be used across the organization. Is there a way that you can do that?
I can't think of a immediate way, but I'm pretty sure you can do it. It might involve a small amount of customization. But when I talk customization, it's probably just a very quick Office add-in.
Great. So, if you want to chat some more and you got some more specific questions on that, go ahead and we can reach out. You can reach out to us after the webinar, and we'll definitely help answer that a little bit better. Another one was can Intune deploy non-MSI packages?
Yes. So it does support executables and it does support MSI. So if you've got an executable and it does support parameters behind it, if you have a really crazy script that you're doing today, you can always repackage that up with a tool like app deploy to be able to present that custom script remotely through Intune.
So before we do go on, I'd like to announce the winner of our Twitter giveaway. And it looks like that is going to be, drum roll, Tim Myers is the winner of the Plantronics speakerphone. So Tim, if you're still on the call, we'll be reaching out to you shortly to get your address so that we can ship that out to you. We did get a couple more questions in. One of them was, does Microsoft have plans to support Mac OS X devices?
Yes. Within that, you can do a fair amount of Mac OS X control today, but if we're talking Intune, then for certain pieces today, you have to tie it into Configuration Manager as well. So today capabilities, if you're using Intune with Configuration Manager integration, you can push out settings, so you can modify your settings immediately. You can push out software. There's no OSD capabilities right now, but you can push out quite a bit. I think I also see another question on third-party patching.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and take, for instance, if we're trying to patch Adobe Reader, for example, one of the capabilities if you're using Configuration Manager is to tie in System Center Update Publisher. This actually has the capability if you want to be able to use that for the Configuration Manager and Intune integration. Alternatively, if it's an executable or MSI capable patch, it works fine. Additionally, you can always wrap those patches up into something like app deploy and redeploy them. So it can definitely do it. I think that they're still building up some additional capabilities around that piece. But if you want the native System Center style, hey, let's bring in Adobe and Java and all these other updates from a third-party catalog like Dell updates, then that's going to come in through your Configuration Manager integration with Intune.
Great. Well, I think that's about it. Looks like we're going to be able to give everybody about 5 minutes of their day back, which is always nice. I really want to thank Joe for his time today and reiterate if anybody has additional questions, his contact information is up here on the screen. And you can also just go to catapultsystems.com and fill out a form, and we'll have someone reach out to you. So thanks for your time today, Joe.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude today's webinar. You may now disconnect.